Texas, a land as large as it is wild, where the boundary separating civilization from wild nature is blurry, where vast cities mix with alarming bogs and blazing deserts to give way to deep woodlands. Danger looms in the shadows in this erratic landscape, frequently where you least expect it. For a split second, imagine strolling across your own yard and suddenly coming upon a creature from your worst dreams right there. But what if I told you that the terror falls from the heavens rather than merely creeps in Texas? This is the true horror story of Peggy Jones, a woman who came across a terror from out of a twisted tale and encountered a spine-chilling monster. Texas is a state of extremes. This is the space where millions of humans live alongside nature's most deadly creatures: rattlesnakes, coyotes, and alligators. There are a great variety of venomous snakes in Texas, one more horrific than the next. From the rattlesnakes waiting in the parched deserts to the cottonmouths slithering through swamps, these animals make up a very real hazard rather than merely causes of anxiety. And even if most Texans know to stay their distance, occasionally danger finds you when least expected. In this state of chaos, there is still one question: how do you keep yourself safe from an attack from above? Peggy Jones never considered she would have to respond to that question. But one fateful day in 2023, she became the focus of an odd and horrific attack, incomprehensible for explanation. Peggy Jones experienced more than just a bad meeting. It was a horrific experience that's left everyone wondering, how could this happen? What's more is that it could happen again. Now, for Peggy Jones, a Texas native who'd grown used to the local fauna, today seemed like any other. She knew the rules, like many Texans: keep your distance, remain vigilant, and never undervalue the threats the environment can offer. Nothing, though, could have equipped her for what happened that day, a horrific event that would cause her to doubt what she believed about the natural world. Peggy and Wendell Jones were just trying to finish another day of exhausting yard labor while the unrelenting Texas sun hammered down on their backs. For Peggy, cutting the grass in the back of the house was an everyday job that she'd done a million times. She negotiated the great distance while the tractor hummed in time and the air smelled of freshly cut grass. She had no idea, on this apparently regular day, fate had something far darker in store. It started with a minute change in the air, one so slight Peggy hardly felt, as though nature herself was holding her breath. The air seemed to get thicker and the sounds of the surroundings muffled. Then the unimaginable occurred without notice. From the pure blue sky, as though dropped by some evil force, a snake landed squarely on Peggy's arm with a fast, terrible accuracy. Her breath seized in her throat as her heart surged, and she stared in horror at the creature now curled around her right arm. About 4.5 feet long, dark-colored, it had glistening, terrifying scales in the sunlight. As truth of the matter struck in, time appeared to slow down. This was something far more dangerous, far more lethal than a basic garden snake.
He was starting to dart at my face and come into my face, and he was striking my glasses, and he just kept on, and I just couldn't get rid of the snake.
Though she was aware of what was going on above, the tractor kept moving slowly below her. Peggy's head spun as she considered a way out, but the circumstances seemed hopeless. The snake's hold was relentless. Its blows grew more frantic and desperate. Her skin was scratched by the searing agony of its fangs, and she could see the venom flowing from its mouth an obvious present hazard that might quickly terminate her life. Then another predator entered the conflict, just when Peggy believed the end was close. With wide-ranging wings, a brown and white hawk descended from the heavens with a great will, intent on recovering its lost prey. It had seen the snake from above. With claws as keen knives, the bird of prey pounced at the serpent, its strong wings whirling the air above Peggy's head. The snake, however, refused to let go and tightened its grasp on Peggy's arm as though it knew this was its one shot at survival. With its beak cracking and talons dragging at the snake's body, the hawk attacked repeatedly. Peggy's arm tugged upwards every time it hit. The intensity of the hawk's attack almost pulled her off the tractor. Just inches from Peggy's face, the two creatures engaged in a furious dance of life and death. She heard the terrible thud of talons contacting flesh and felt the surge of wind from the hawk's wings. Ignorant of the person trapped at the center of this fatal tug-of-war, the hawk's acute and concentrated eyes were fixed on its victim.
The hawk came down 4 times to get the snake off of my arm. When I looked down, I had blood all over my clothes. I had blood all over my arm. My arm was torn to shreds.
At last, for what seemed like an eternity, the hawk grabbed the snake firmly. Its target hung limp from its talons as it tore the serpent from Peggy's arm with one last forceful stab and shot skyward. The fight was finished. Harm had been done. Peggy was left gasping for air, her arm covered in blood, her body shivering from the adrenaline still coursing through her veins. Hearing Peggy scream at last, Wendell hurried to be at her side. He looked upon something out of a dream. Covered in blood, her arm crushed and ripped, his wife was in shock, and her eyes were wide with terror and incredulity. Wendell grabbed her without thinking twice and hurried her to their truck. His head whirled as he tried to process the tragedy they'd suffered. The medics at the hospital cleaned and bandaged Peggy's cuts fast. Their amazement at the unusual mix of injuries, deep bruises, lacerations and claw marks that told the story of her horrific experience grew. And although the medics treated her with antibiotics and medications, the psychological wounds would heal far more slowly.
You try to sleep at night, you can't sleep. And you're afraid to shut your eyes because you know if you shut your eyes and you go to sleep, then you're going to have a nightmare and you're going to relive this situation.
Days became weeks, but the anxiety persisted. Though Peggy's injuries healed gradually, the horror of that day permeated her life. The snake had left traces on her spirit as much as on her arm. Every shadow, every rustle in the grass, every movement that may indicate another lurking threat made her suspicious. Wendell tried to be there for her as she worked to come to grips with what had transpired. He understood, though, Peggy had to fight this war on her own. Her arm would heal, but the trauma, the anxiety, the nightmares, those would not heal right away. Ever the survivor, Peggy aimed forward to put the trauma behind her. She knew, though, that she would never forget that day, the one when nature herself turned against her in the most merciless, unforgiving manner. She had confronted death and lived to tell the story, but the scars, seen and invisible, would linger always. Thank you for joining us for this heart-pounding escape story. If this story caught your attention, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Your support allows us to keep bringing you unbelievable tales from the depths of reality. Remember, nature is erratic. Stay alert. Look after yourself, and we'll see you for the next journey.